Hello, students. For those of you absent, here is what happened in class over the past week. So, this past week was the second week of having Mrs. Autumn as your secondary teacher. She is a real pleasure to be around.
I love being here.
All right. Yes, well, we're glad to have you. Anyway, you seem to like Mrs. Autumn, and she has much more knowledge on this, general area. You know, the school. It's nice to have someone around to warn me about the upcoming rain showers, during which there are cats, dogs, and even small equestrians falling from the heavens.
Gotta be careful about that. Death by equestrian is no laughing matter. You're all fairly smart, though, as only one person ended up in the hospital due to last weekend's rain. Please send Brian Peril your regards. Shall we move on to this past week?
Of course. Students, please be aware that our school does not tolerate laziness. On that note, let's reflect on what our student Abigail H. tried to pull this past week. She had gone blind from the experiment in her essay and attempted to use this as an excuse to not complete her classwork. "But, Mr. Bruno, I'm blind. I can't read the board," she said, holding up a red and white cane. Nice try, Abigail. She has detention for the next week. Use this as an example, students. Stop with the excuses.
You'll only get better if you stop with the excuses and start trying. Just because you're blind doesn't mean you can't see science.
Anyway, because television rots your brain, I've taken the liberty of summing up this week's lesson in Mr. Bruno's Science Breakdown. I'll be reviewing the atomic bonds this time. Much like the bond that I share with all of you, they're hard to notice, but certainly there. Probably.
A covalent bond occurs when two or more atoms share an orbiting electron. The shared electron is the nuclei of both atoms. But the stronger bond is the ionic bond. An ionic bond occurs when one electron is loaned from one atom to another.
Kind of like when you let another student borrow your pencil. You expect to get it back. If it's Freddie you loaned it to, you probably won't. Metallic bonds occur when electrons are shared widely between multiple atoms. They're passed around like I can't really think of a child-appropriate metaphor here, so just know it's one of the weaker bonds. And that's it for this week's Science Breakdown. I sincerely hope none of that was new to any of you. We did discuss it.
But not if you were absent.
Don't break the fourth wall, Autumn. Of course. Anyway, Monday we talked about the first type of bonding, ionic bonding. Metal with nonmetal. This type of bond is very strong, as well as conductive when it's a liquid. Tuesday, since Freddie decided to eat my entire stash of barium sulfate, we used the lab's X-ray machine to look at his intestines. Wednesday, we talked about the second type of bonding, covalent bonding. Non-metal with non-metal. Water, carbon dioxide, methane, things we can't live without. Why don't you say what else we did?
Let's go over ionic bonding. Now, you see, on the right side of the periodic are the noble gases. They look down on the rest of the elements because they are extremely stable. It's their electrons, you see. Their outermost layer of electrons are full. Secretly, the rest of the elements long to be like the noble gases. But they either have not enough electrons on their outer shell, or they have too many, which results in not enough.
On their own, they can never become noble. They're simply too common. But if they get together, they can give their electron soldiers to those who have not enough and can become as noble and stable as the gases. This kind of trading electron is called an ionic bond. We then went to the lab to experiment on some examples of ionic bonds. We started with sodium chloride, which you were all so excited to experiment on, especially when I told you it was edible. The excitement lessened when you all learned it was salt. Calcium chloride was next. We dissolved it in water and measured the rise in temperature, which Freddy used to make hot cocoa in. More calcium for him, I suppose. This was all Thursday, by the way. Thursday was actually a pretty good day for learning.
Friday, we found some potassium bromide. We immediately set it on fire and enjoyed the pink flame. Well, except Abigail. But I'm sure she enjoyed the sound and smell of burning lab equipment. And some hair. It was wonderfully exciting.
And dangerous. Just a little bit. But what is science without risk?
I'd like to think astronomy.
I guess so. It was more of a rhetorical question.
Oh.
Well, I've had enough. That's all for this week, students. Take care, and I'll see you next week.
We'll
See you next week.